Tots, it's Mrs. Poe again, and I wanted to talk to you today about words. Do you remember how we said that letters and sounds make words and words tell stories? Well, I have a story for you that's full of words. But before we get to the story, I wanted you to look at the words. We're going to come across the word curious a lot. That word is used a lot in our story. And curious means when you're very eager to find something out. And we'll come across the word art and paint and school and fan and star and so many other words. So let's look out. Let's be on the lookout for these words. Well, my story today is called Curious George Goes to School. And I just love George, and he is very curious. It was open house at George's school, and he went with a man with a yellow hat to school. There he is. And there we see all the other mommies and daddies and important people going with the children to school at night to meet the teacher and to hear a little bit about what school's like. So George went with the man with the yellow hat. That was his friend. And the man with the yellow hat said, "I'd like to speak to your teacher, George. Give me a few minutes." And George said, "Okay." And you know about George. He gets very curious. So, the door of the art room was open, and he poked his head in, and he saw the art teacher. And the art teacher said, "Come on in, George. I'm just cleaning up the art room, putting some paints away. Maybe you'd like to paint something while you're waiting for your friend." Well, you didn't have to ask George twice. He loves to paint, and he would really like to paint a picture. But then he noticed there were so many paintings hanging on the wall. Those paintings were done by all the other children at school. And then he saw this chart, and it had a lot of children's names on the chart. Let's see, it had David, Susan, Rick, and it had Alan and Alice and Donald. Yeah. And every name seemed to have a star by it, but not Alice's name. There was no star. George wanted to know why there was no star by Alice's name. And the teacher said, "Well, that's when everybody else handed in their painting. Alice's painting wasn't in the pile. It's missing. So the teacher couldn't give her credit for it, couldn't give her a star." "Oh, that must have made Alice very sad," said George. And the teacher said, "Yes, made her very sad." So George got busy painting, and you can see that this book is very well loved. So there's some scribbles in it for when my kids were little. And George was getting a little tired painting as the teacher was putting things away. And the teacher had to leave the room for a few minutes. George said, "Whoa, am I warm? I wonder if I can cool myself off a little bit." What he would need to do. You can't control the air conditioning in the room, but maybe he can put on a fan. Why, there was a fan. He thought maybe he'd put a fan on. There was the switch, and he turned the fan on. What happens when you turn a fan on? A lot of wind. Oh no. Look what happened. By mistake, George blew the artwork all over the room. When the teacher came back, he said, "Oh, George, what have you done?" And George said, "Don't worry, I'll clean it up. I'm sorry." So George cleaned up all the papers that were on the floor. And then he noticed there was a paper wedged or caught behind the teacher's desk. And he tried to get that painting out. And when he got it out from underneath and behind the desk, he said, "Look, it says Alice. I wonder if this is Alice's missing painting." Oh, George, you found it. That is the missing painting. Now I can give Alice a star too. Alice is going to be so happy. When the kids all came to the art room after they'd met with other teachers, there was Alice's painting up on the wall, and Alice was so proud. She said, "You found my painting." And the teacher said, "No, George did. And look at your star. You have a star right on your chart by your name." And Alice said, "Thank you, George. Thank you for finding my painting. I'm so proud. Why, your painting's good too. I think you need a star too." And so George got his very own star. Yippee! And it was soon time to leave and go home with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. The end. All right, I have some questions I want to ask you. Do you remember what the word curious means? Here's the word. Curious. That's right. It means when you really want to find something out. You're eager to find it out. You're interested. That's good. Now I have another question for you. Do you remember why Alice was sad? You were listening very well. She was sad because her artwork was missing. Very good. And our next question. What did George do while he was waiting for his friend, the man with the yellow hat? He was painting. He was given some paint. Paint. And where did the story take place? You're right again. At George's school. And how did George find the missing artwork that belonged to Alice? Do you remember? Exactly. He turned on the fan and it blew the papers everywhere. And that's when he really had to go looking for all the papers. And there behind and under the teacher's desk was Alice's artwork. One more question. At the end, who got some gold stars? 2 people. Alice? Who else? George. George and Alice got gold stars. And here's our word star. Yep, star. S-T-A-R, star. You did a really good job today with those words. Remember, it's all about words this week. And until next time, when I have a new story and more words for you, I love you. I love you. It's been fun reading together.